Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome to Synergence. Synergence is the annual career fest of Shiv Nadar University, Delhi-NCR. And this year, the theme of Synergence is Knowledge is Power. And that rings particularly true given the context of Shiv Nadar University, which is dedicated to expanding the frontiers of knowledge through research focused and multidisciplinary education. To, to kickstart the Synergence Festival this year, we are delighted to have with us Mukta Arya to deliver the keynote address. Mukta is one of the most dynamic individuals I know. She has, over the years, been a mentor, a colleague, a good friend, a fellow foodie, and a travel companion. And Mukta, I'm very, very glad that you accepted this invitation to speak at Shiv Nadar University's festival. Mukta currently is the Managing Director and Regional Head of Human Resources Asia Pacific at Societe Generale, a leading investment bank in Asia Pacific with a rich legacy of 150 years. She has worked in leading organizations like ESSA, Tata TD Waterhouse, Ogilvy India, and has led human resources teams across these organizations before she joined Societe Generale in India 15 years ago. And the last 15 years in Societe Generale, she has led several large mandates for the organization, including the roles of Regional Head of Talent Development and Inclusion, Head of HR for Southeast Asia, before she transitioned to her current role. A multifaceted individual, Mukta is also a certified coach accredited by International Coaching Federation. She's a global fellow in talent management from Wharton and a published author with 5 books to her credit. Today, she will share her thoughts on the workplaces of tomorrow and what is the emerging skill sets, the emerging challenges, and the emerging opportunities that are needed to thrive in the future of work that is coming up. I'm sure this session will be hugely enriching for all of us here. And without further ado, I invite Mukta to start this session. We will take questions towards the end of the session. There is a Q&A box on the right top of the screen. You could type in any questions you want us to address there, and we will address this towards the end of the conversation. Over to you, Mukta. This is all yours.
Thank you, Sunil, for this wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here and really thank the opportunity to speak to students and faculty like you. It reminds me of my MBA days when we used to have faculties or visiting lecturers coming from industry, and we used to really look forward to it because that was our link to the real world. What I will try to do here in this keynote is give you a little background about where I work, about my journey as a professional in the corporate world, about the talent landscape in Asia Pacific, as well as what Sunil mentioned about future of work and what are the skills that are necessary for future and for all of us, and how important it is for an investment bank like us. So for me, I have been working in HR for 24 years. And I met Sunil when he joined us in Ogilvy. So I was their HR at that time in Mumbai. And then that's where we got to know each other. And after that, I moved into investment banking as HR again. So I have been in HR throughout. Worked in India 8 years. And then the rest of the years, I have worked in Asia Pacific countries. I work in Societe Generale, which is an investment bank. It's a universal bank, actually, worldwide, with really rich history, as he mentioned, but also quite progressive now because we have to move forward. So it's quite innovative. And I'll talk about some of the things that we look for when we hire people. And in Asia Pacific, we are mostly corporate and investment bank, present in 12 markets. Why it is important for you to know is because when I talk about the talent landscape, then you can relate to it that these are the countries I'm talking about. It's Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, India, Southeast Asia, Singapore, and the other countries where we have representative offices. And China, of course. I cannot forget China. For us, when we look at people, when we are hiring people, it has been always, it is 50-50 chance when you hire people, whether they will turn out to be really accustomed to your culture, whether they will be really what you wanted, or they will turn out to be a failure. Now, of course, all organizations and including ours, we try to make sure that we are hiring people who will stay with us for a long time. So what we look for, and I don't think it will come as a surprise to you, but what we look for is basically people who have a positive attitude. I worked in my first company that I worked in was SR, and their motto was positive attitude. And it always stuck to my mind that whichever company I have worked in, one of the quality that we look for in any new joiner, not only youngsters, who are completing their education and then joining the industry, positive attitude is one of the most important one. And it is all the more important for the future. Why? Because if you do not have a positive attitude, you're not going to adapt. And adaptability has come up as a top ranked quality that we want in people because things are changing. For us as an investment bank, we do have people movement, which is there. And in some markets in Asia Pacific, there is a lot of turnover. The turnover in emerging markets is there, but also in some of the advanced market, you will see there are phases when people move around. There are senior people who might be moving. There are people who want career changes. So there are a lot of things that are happening in the talent landscape, and adaptability becomes quite important. The other thing that we have looked at and we find very important for people that we hire is creativity, critical thinking, because everything is not written, so you have a lot of things which are there. There is no written document. You have to sometimes take decision. And frankly, last year, this is what we did. We took a lot of decisions based on very little information during COVID time. And the thing is, you have to take a decision. It's not like you can sit on the fence and do nothing. So we do look for people who have that presence of mind and that critical thinking, that based on whatever information that we have, it may not be enough. Can we take a decision which will at least minimize the risk, because you don't want to put everything in danger. You have to take you have to take risks which are calculated. So that is important for us. The other thing that personally I find quite important, and you would have heard about it a lot, is on resilience. Do we have the resilience factor within us? And of course, I'm not saying that we all have to be hardcore resilient people who can withstand any pressure which is there, but a number we do need to have some amount of resilience, because when things are changing, the future doesn't seem very bright. When you have things which are uncertain, you do need to have resilience to face what is happening in this world. So for me, I think that is important, and when we are hiring people, we do look at all those things. The other things, and I'm not quoting any of the research, because there is a lot of research available where you can look at the skills which are required for the future of work. From a very practical point of view, this is what we think in SocGen, from HR point of view, that when we are hiring people, this is going to be these are going to be the people who are going to be with us for longer time. So very important in terms of resilience, that we have people who have this particular quality, and they can build on it. And especially, maybe as a new joiner, it's a little bit easier, but when you become a manager, then resilience become all the more important. Because if you do not have resilience, then first of all, you are not able to be productive, and then people who are working under you also get different kind of messages, from you as a leader who is not resilient. So we have to make sure that we are looking at people who at least exhibit some of these qualities. Last but not least, in terms of the skills and the qualities that we are looking at, is people who are able to work in a team. And I know it is cliched, people talk about it all the time. The fact of the matter is, in corporate world, in our organization, for example, a number of things have to be worked in conjunction with others. There is matrix structure, like all the other international banks. You have local managers, you have regional managers, in some cases you have global managers. And if you're not able to work with people, different kind of people, different personalities, then I think it's going to be a difficult situation. The teamwork is important. It's important to have your individual qualities, but it is also important how you learn to work with others. Okay, so for me, quite important, and linked to this particular quality, I would also say your networking ability. Networking ability is not only important in our organization, it is important everywhere. Personally, I feel in every walk of life, you need to have the skill. If you are an introvert, extrovert, I mean, if you're an extrovert, it's easier. But if you're an introvert, you can still make an effort to do it. If you are in a position where you do need to work with other people, you do need to develop your ability to network. If you want to grow in an organization, it is extremely important that you keep in touch with people, you know how to build relationship, and you know how to keep them. Very important in actually every walk of life, not only in our organization. So yes, these are some of the qualities that we look at. The skills that are there are basically what I my recommendation is that whatever you are studying, whichever field you are in, become a master at it. Yeah, because in the beginning, when your foundation is strong, when you are a master at it, after that, when you want to generalize, it becomes much more meaningful. Yeah, but you have to have your domain knowledge. Yeah, so for example, in HR, if I do not have domain knowledge, my business partners are not going to look at me as an advisor. Yeah, if I'm not giving them sound advice which can help them to do the business in a meaningful way, frankly, what is the value that I have in the organization? So for me, what I feel is that whatever field you are in, you have to love it. Yeah, if you don't love it, you won't have the passion, and if you won't have the passion, it shows. So when you have the passion, it also shows, and then people look at you as somebody who is a go-to person. And this is really important. Now, I'm not going to hire somebody, for example, in my HR team, who doesn't show passion for HR. If people are just there, to explore and all, I can understand. But if you're there for 2 years, at least show the passion for the profession that you are in. So I think that for me is important, and it's not very easy to actually figure out in a 1 hour interview or 2 3 interviews whether the person is really passionate about it or not. But we still try to with structured interviewing techniques, with asking them about things which are what they do apart from work, apart from their day to day profession. What else do they do? We try to see whether people have passion or not. And if you are passionate yourself, it's very you can assess whether the other person is passionate or not. Even though I can tell you people are quite some of the people are quite experts in manipulating and faking during interview process. um I tend to frankly go towards people who are genuine. And again, genuineness, if you're authentic, if you don't know something, say you don't know about it. We are not, we don't know everything in this world, huh? If you don't know something, there is no harm in saying, okay, let me come back, but I don't know about it. It's perfectly fine. But being authentic and genuine is another important quality which I personally feel that it's very important. And I can tell you, investment banks like SocGen, but also other investment banks and other companies, everybody looks for people who are authentic, genuine, people who have integrity. Yeah, you will see it written in every single their code of conduct which is there. We are all looking for people whom we can trust. Yeah, we don't want people who can, when something goes wrong, they put it under the carpet. What we want is people who are honest enough, when something goes wrong, raise it at the right time, so that whatever damage is going to happen, we can minimize the risk to the organization. I think that is quite important. And if you are a reliable person, I think that is something which an organization is looking for. So for me, I really believe that when you are not genuine, it may work for maybe some time, but it may not work forever. So if you want a long lasting sustainable career, this is very important, that people are able to rely on you. And even when, for example, in the organization, if they have to take a chance and say give you a position for which you don't have any experience, they would still like to go with somebody whom they rely on than somebody whom they don't know at all. So for me, for example, I moved 4 times in my journey in Societe Generale, from Mumbai to Hong Kong to Singapore, back to Hong Kong. And I think one of the important thing was this, that even though when I moved to Hong Kong, I had no idea about the various countries in Hong Kong. When I moved to Singapore, I did not know much about, I mean, Singapore, I never lived there before. However, because I was with the company, because I'd worked in different positions, there was certain level of comfort and reliability. The company was willing to take a chance with me. So I do believe that for a sustainable career, I think it's important, and you do need to spend some time in the company. Yeah. So this is my first part on qualities, skills. Sunil, is there something you want me to add on here, or is there any question on this?
We can continue, and we can come to the Q&As a little later.
Okay.
At this time, I don't think there's anything which has been submitted.
Okay, no problem, because for me, I'm looking at your campus, which is quite beautiful and quite big. So sometimes I do need some manual intervention, human intervention when I'm talking.
Not
Okay, okay. So this is for me what I think as a HR professional, and this whatever I'm talking about is universal. So it's the same in different markets that we work in. So the markets that we work in right now, if you look at it, the talent landscape is competitive. I will say that even though it is COVID time, 2021 has been very hot for recruitment in certain markets. Now, the reasons are manifold. Okay, so in some countries, it's because a lot of governments are getting more protective about local talents. So if you are applying outside, in other countries, if you do not have a working visa there, sometimes it can be difficult for you to do it because the governments are quite protective about having local people. Okay, so it's the same as in India, where getting a work visa for a foreigner for certain kind of positions is not that easy. That is one. The second is, in some countries like in Japan, Korea, China, language is an issue. So we do have to have people who speak the language. So if you are multilingual, it will always be in your favor. Financial centers like Hong Kong and Singapore, of course, they are English speaking countries, and we do have a large international population there. But the market here is quite dynamic. Again, because of COVID, not many people are able to come in or go in Hong Kong. For example, we have 21 days quarantine for most of the countries. So the talent pool is quite small. There are people who, international population, who want to go back to their own countries. The phenomena of great resignation that you have been hearing about, I mean, it is there in the air. It's a mindset change. People have been thinking about what they have been doing, whether it is meaningful enough or not, or whether they should prioritize their family relationships, the love of their family above the material gains which they have when they are working away from their family. So there are a lot of reasons why people have been shifting, changing jobs, and as a consequence, you will see that in some parts the talent pool is shrinking. Now, some of the things, some of the skills are in high demand, like IT and the technical field, which is there, is in high demand, not only in banks but also in fintechs, hedge funds. Everybody is actually looking for IT people. So suddenly we had a dearth of IT people, and people who had engineering background became a hot property. And then in some areas you will find that a lot of companies are paying a lot of stress on diversity and inclusion. So in banks, for example, normally we would have less women at senior management level. So suddenly you will see that that women, in financial services, in front office, they again become quite in demand, because a lot of companies have targets to achieve. They need to have 30% women in senior management, or 40% or 50%. And then all this drives the talent landscape that we have in different parts of the world. Normally, in my experience, China is quite volatile normally in terms of talent landscape, because people do change their jobs pretty often. Japan, Korea are a little bit more stable. Hong Kong is quite high in terms of movement, because opportunities are there and big banks are there. Singapore, also from time to time, people are changing a lot of jobs which are there. Australia to some extent, but not that much. And Southeast Asia, we don't have much presence, so I can't talk much about. But Taiwan, for example, is stable for us. So again, if you look at the landscape in Asia Pacific, the talent availability and the talent movement actually differs. 2020, for example, it didn't do, there was not much attrition, but 2021 was very high attrition for most of the banks in Asia Pacific, especially in Hong Kong and Singapore and China, which is the case all the time. And of course, I can't discount the fact that in India, it has been pretty hot also in 2021. So for me, the qualities that we look for in people across all these markets are what I just spoke about. Yeah. And of course, when we have a talent scarcity in a certain market, what we try to do as a company is that try to see if the roles that were, say, traditionally in Hong Kong, which is our regional headquarter, can we look at other locations? Can we have, for example, regional positions which are based out of other locations? And this is something which is a strategy which some companies have. And we have also started looking at it because you have to go where the talent is. You can't just say that because my headquarter is in a particular country, I will only stick to this one. So that is something which companies do to make sure that at least the talent is available for the work that they have to do. A lot of companies have co-locations, so they will have maybe regional hub, say in Hong Kong and Singapore, which are quite similar in terms of lifestyle and pay scales, etc. And a lot of international population would like to live here because the local language is not an issue here in these two countries, when you have to work. So there are multiple things which we have to look at when we are looking at talents. We have to look at things like, are we creating a new pool of talent? So of course, directly from campus is one. We also launched recently a program which is called Returnship, which is for uh, people who have been out of work for some time. Are they trailing spouses, or they took maybe a break because of family circumstances? So we are giving them an opportunity to work for 6 months, 7 months, and then see if they like the job. And if we have a permanent opportunity, then we give it to them. So basically, we are helping them to re-enter the market. And in that case, you do find people who could be pretty good, but maybe ignored because of some of the other circumstances. If we are looking only for traditional ways of hiring people, so I think that is not only our organization. I've seen a number of other organizations who are looking at that. And I know in India a long time ago we used to have one of the Tata company doing this. I don't know what it was called, but something related to return to work program which is there. So yeah, I think the talent landscape for me has challenges of its own. When we look at Hong Kong versus China versus Taiwan versus South Korea, they are very different. So again, the one size does not fit everyone. We have to make sure that we look locally. What are the things which are there? The labor laws which are there, because labor laws also sometimes make decisions difficult in terms of hiring, or in terms of taking a decision. If a person does not turn out to be good, then how do we exit? So there are labor laws which can make it very difficult in certain countries. And that's why you will see in certain countries hiring you know foreign talent is also quite difficult, and in some countries it's easy. So we have to really look at the various factors when we are taking a decision of where to hire, where to keep the positions or not. Yeah. So yeah, this is on the talent landscape that we have. And the other thing, as an international organization, we have to really uh, look at and be mindful of is the cultural sensitivity, because we have 12 markets. As a regional head, for example, for me, I have my direct reports in different parts of APAC. They have different upbringing, different cultures, the way they work. So I think also understanding the culture of each of these areas becomes very important. It comes over time. It's not like you can read a book and understand. You can get some ideas, but the real thing that happens is when you are interacting with people on a day to day basis. It's really eye-opening. When I moved to Hong Kong first from Mumbai, I was speaking very fast. And then my colleagues who were in Japan and Korea would always tell me, "Can you please repeat? Can you please repeat?" And then when I heard it many times, I realized that it is something which I need to work on. I had to really work on speaking slowly, each and every, not speaking jargons, not speaking words which are very difficult, because people may not understand you, and then the entire impact of what you're trying to say, it just goes away. So I think that is quite important. Then of course, trying to understand that the differences, the way we work, difference between what I my style is versus somebody else's style, it can be completely different. Am i am I respectful of that? I think that's quite important, to respect that when people have a different style because of whatever reasons, whether it's cultural, whether it's personality, it is it has its own merit. And what I need to do is look at the positive side of it, instead of trying to pinpoint why they are doing like this, it doesn't work, and they are so, this way or that way. I think the mindset has to change when we are working in a culturally different kind of world. We have to really respect. It requires a lot of patience. It requires unlearning a lot of things. It requires openness to things that we never thought will happen, including food. Okay. So I know that a number of us, for example, would be vegetarians. But is it like, can you can you still, for example, go for lunch with somebody who is not vegetarian? Because food really, it is a great bonding place. Okay. When you are going for lunch or dinner with somebody, I mean, you can still maintain whatever your beliefs are, but still participate in the local culture. And I think that is quite important, that when we are working in an international surrounding, when we are going to a different country, so for example, I'm a foreigner in whichever country outside India, I have to really love the culture that I'm in. I have to show respect. I have to try to learn the way they look at things. And then only I will be able to build trust, with the people. And I think that's really important, to build trust with people that you're working with who are not from the same culture as you are, by really respecting their culture. I think that's what is the most important thing when we are working in an international environment. And this is the same for everybody. When we have French people working in China or Japan, or Indians working in Singapore, or Japanese people coming to Hong Kong, I think it's the same. And I think that becomes really important, because if that is not there, the inclusion will never be there. And if organizations need to be really inclusive, where people are really trusting each other and working towards the same goal, this becomes quite important. Yeah. So for me, I think we look forward to all to these kind of profiles, where employees are able to understand each other and be inclusive. Now again, it is not easy. You will still have silos. It is, mindset change is not easy at all, but the aim is that we go in that direction, and that's what we try to do in our organization. Try to be more inclusive by trying to break down silo, bring people together over different activities, not only work related, but also extracurricular. And that's what I think is important, that when you have people who know each other over other activities, they tend to work better together, and this is really proven. So if you have extracurricular activities like dragon boat racing, you have the running club or the tennis club and all, and people do bond over it, and it works well, for the organization. So that's the kind of organization that we are looking at. Now, finally, I want to talk about the future of work, and I wanted to. These are my thoughts. Some of them are my thought, but some of them are already now in existence. As an investment bank, spread across so many markets, a lot of our things are online. So uh, most of the organizations are IT driven nowadays, without which we cannot do anything here. So innovation becomes an important part, and innovation does not mean only IT, but it's also the way we do work. So for us, what we are looking when we are looking at future of work is, first of all, innovation in everything that we do? Are we able to use the current technologies which are there? So IT is part of it, yes, the blockchain and everything else. But also, are we able to simplify the work that we do? Do we have an environment where it is conducive for employees to come up with ideas without the fear of saying that, okay, your idea is not good enough and why are you talking about it? Do people are people employees supported? Whether the fear of failure is there or not there, I think that is the important part when I talk about innovation. Are we able to create an environment where people feel there is psychological safety, they can speak up? So that is one which I think is the future of work, where people feel that they are psychologically safe to come up with ideas and maybe given time to do work on those ideas. It is already happening in some of the organization, but it's not that prevalent, where employees are given personal time to do things on their own. So I think that's something which is becoming more and more popular. Why? Because employees want to do things that they love apart from what they're doing professionally. So there are some people for whom what they do at their workplace is what they love, so which is perfect, huh? But there are many people, they may be doing it because also you need to feed a family, you need to have money, in your pocket to do other things that you want to do. So some companies are now, of course, giving time, and also for us, some of the departments are giving time to employees to come up with ideas in their office time, so maybe 2 hours, every week. So that is one which is happening, where employees are doing what they love within the office hours. Okay. The second, and which I think very strongly about, we have not implemented it, and I don't know whether it will be implemented in the coming future. But what I believe is that employees may have alternative careers at the same time. So, for example, if I am a HR professional, but I'm also, say, interested in photography, and I may do 3 days full-time job as a HR person, and then 2 days I may do my photography assignments, and one day I just write my books because I do like to write. So I can do that. And I think this is something which I have seen a number of people talking about it, that this is what ideally they would like to do. And some of them have done that. So what they do is they take part-time jobs, and then they do something on their own, which is there. So it's basically combining the need to earn money with what they are passionate about. Yeah. And I think this is something which might happen in future, when we have maybe the the 9 to 6 kind of job, that you have to work only in one organization at the same time. It might give way to this, and I do think that this is going, because people have been thinking about their life, and they have been thinking about that I have to do something which is actually close to my heart. Yeah. And I do think we are going towards that. Hybrid work, you have heard about it a lot, and this is already happening. So it's no longer future; it is now. We all have. We work flexibly. We work 2 days actually in Societe from home. 3 days we go to office. Things are, IT infrastructure is quite good. You can work from anywhere. That kind of thing. Of course, with some constraints, because we still have licensed employees like traders who need to be in a particular location, and because of security reasons. So hybrid is already here. All the online using AI blockchains for doing business is already happening. So it's no longer future. For me, the future, I also think, is much more humane. Why I'm saying that is because when you can work from anywhere, when you are remote, when sometimes you don't even see people that you work with face to face because of different constraints, then the only thing that will bind it together and make organizations productive and culturally strong is the trust that they have on each other. Whether it's a manager subordinate relationship, whether it is peers, whether it is any other kind of, whether you are not even reporting to each other, but in agile teams, if you do not have trust, then it's never going to work. And that's why I'm saying, and this is my strong belief, is that it will become more humane. For me, it is not going to become robotic, because if it was robotic, then everything will work on its own and you do not need this. But for me, I think the trust factor will become more important. If the teams have trust, I think those teams will work much better than the others who do not have amongst themselves. And if you don't see each other, then the chances of bridging the gap becomes all the more difficult. So yeah, I think that is what I think is quite is important. And of course, I feel that all the robotics, the AI, all this is going to help us to be more efficient. I look at it positively, that all these support that we have will actually help us to be better, maybe more strategic, maybe more innovative, and think of newer ways of doing things instead of taking away jobs. For me, it's coexistence and not one over the other. So I do see future of work as quite bright. We will have obsolescence of jobs. We have new jobs which are going to come in. There are already studies which have happened which says that if you're an accountant now, you have certain skills which will maybe convert your job into, say, in cybersecurity, because the skills that you require right now as an accountant actually will help you that. So these kind of studies have already happened, where you can map the jobs that you have currently and what actually you could do later, because some of the jobs that we have right now are going to become obsolete. So yeah, things are happening in that way. And finally, in future of work, I want to mention about well-being and mental well-being in particular, because this is a topic which has come up. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mukta, I think we lost you
Okay.
briefly.
Yeah, sorry, I'm working from home today, so a bit
No problem.
a bit dicey on connection. Okay, so yeah, I was talking about mental well-being and well-being in particular, and I do think that future of work is all dependent on the well-being of employees, the caring part of it, and the mental well-being. Because when we have all these things that I spoke about, there is also pressure on employees. There are also the resilience factor, where some employees are more resilient than others. When you are remote, there are other things which might impact your mental health. So how do organizations take care of it? By providing a support ecosystem, because I think that's very important, that you have managers who understand you, you have technology to support you, but you also have other things. So like, for example, counseling services through employee assistance program, apps which can help you to reach out and give you on demand support if you need it, articles where people are reading it, training, to cope with certain things. There are a lot of things which have to be done in this field, and I do think that that will become quite important for employees and employers going forward. And yeah, that's my view of future of work. I'm sure maybe 6 months down the line it might change, because many things will come up, but as of now, I feel that this is what it will be. But again, it's all doable. I don't think it is something which is not doable. It's just getting prepared for the future. Yeah. So yeah, that's it from me. Sunil, do I have more time, or should we spend some
Yes,
time
we
on
do. We have
questions?
about 15, 20 minutes more. So thank you so much, Mukta. That was very enlightening. Just some thoughts which came before we move on to the audience question while we were talking, and perhaps it would be good if you could address some of these. One of the things that is becoming important, perhaps, is that as jobs are changing, as professions are changing, lifelong learning is becoming important. And
Mm-hmm.
as an open resource professional, how do organizations today encourage learning to keep the skill sets relevant as employees grow into their careers? Because there have been a lot of significant interventions, right, from social media to the way digital has shaping
Mm-hmm.
the world, now Meta coming into place. So lots
Yeah.
of things changing. So how do you evaluate the role of lifelong learning, and how do you integrate that into your processes?
Yeah. Thanks, Sunil. I think this is a really important question, and I personally believe in lifelong learning. So, organizations they do a lot of things for this. So it's not only what you need urgently. With the, like you said, social media learning is there. So you have LinkedIn Learning, you have Coursera, you have a number of other platforms which are there. What I believe is that what organizations can provide these kind of facilities, these kind of platforms to employees. For me, it still remains with employees to take charge of their career. So you can
Right.
provide thousands of things, but if employees themselves are not interested in progressing and learning, nothing is going to happen. So again, for me, I feel that organizations create the environment where learning is valued and recognized. Managers play a very important role in that. If they are the ones who encourage this, okay, and show interest in the development of the employee by really telling them, okay, these are the things that they do well, but these are the things they can work on it. They read this article, maybe they can share, certain things. Then I think employees will feel more encouraged, and
Right.
they can get the direction also. So for me, managers are quite important, and that's why the managerial culture in an organization is extremely important, whether they are the
Right.
ones who encourage learning or not. Otherwise, people can go anywhere. There are thousands of things which are available, and companies are spending a lot of money on that. But I can tell you that in what I have seen is that a lot of people themselves are also willing to pay nowadays, to do learning on their own. They are not dependent on organizations to fund their learning requirements. If somebody wants to do something, they actually do it. But organization do play a big part in making sure the employees are relevant as
Hmm.
well as meaningful for the organization.
Of course. Of course. And again, taking off from what you said a little earlier about, how as Indians we tend to speak a little fast, and it's a cultural shift that you need to, engage in when you move on to a global or a regional role. What are some of the other challenges? Having worked in personally also in a couple of other markets, there are cultural shifts which one has to be sensitive to. For example, if you go to some of the Southeast Asian markets, they are not as direct with feedback. They tend to be far more diplomatic, and it takes time to understand what they're saying. So, what are the
Yeah.
cultural shifts, and how does one get ready to play at the or to take on a regional profile after having worked in a national profile?
Yeah, I think it's not that easy. Uh, we do need, for example, when I went to Singapore, I think it's important to learn about how people, what are their food habits, okay? What are the
Yeah.
language, for example, Singlish, how is it spoken? Do you, for example, I did learn few words of Singlish, and when I used to speak to my local friends and colleagues there, I mean, they used to feel quite happy about it that a foreigner is trying to learn all these kind of things. I think for me, it's really important to be immersed in the culture where you are, and then you will understand when people are there. In Asia, for example, lunch hour is sacrosanct. Most of
Hmm.
the people would want to take 1.5 hours, for lunch. And if I, for example, tell them that no, you need to do work, I'm sure they will do it, but it's not something which is appreciated. Okay.
Right.
So, for example, once I understand that, then I will also rejig my schedule to make sure that I'm not encroaching on some things which are very important to them. For
Hmm.
example, in Hong Kong, when we moved from one floor to another, it was a new office, for us, renovated office. We did the ceremony, like the office warming with the local pig cutting ceremony, which is there. Now, again, it is very close to the heart of local people because, it's a culture. And the thing
Yeah.
is, if I appreciate as the manager and actually do it, then people feel that I understand them better.
Hmm.
And then I can also find that when they are talking to me, they are much more open because they think that I'm open about it. And Sunil, you have been in Singapore, that durian is quite important, and some
Yes.
people love it. Now I also love it, and when I tell people in my team that, oh, I love durian, so people who love durian, they feel that I'm very close to them because we share the common interest, which is durian. So, so for me, I think learning about different things and using it in your day-to-day life is
Hmm.
is quite important when you are working in international environment. Geography is very important. I still find a lot of people don't know, where different places are. But when I'm talking to my colleague in Korea, and I know the parts of Busan and other places, and what happens in Seoul, and what do you find there, which is very, very interesting to buy. I think it just creates that interpersonal relationship, which is wonderful, and it brings us closer. So for me, I think that is the first thing. And then, of course, understanding how people work in terms of whether they like to, write things in writing, whether they like to recap all your conversations which are there, whether when there is a conflict situation, how do they handle it? Do they tell
Hmm.
you directly? But if they're not telling you directly, how do you circumvent and try to come to that, solution?
Yeah,
It just, you have to learn it on the way.
of course.
And frankly, books cannot teach you because they are very stereotypical.
True, true.
Yeah.
And the other question I had, and before we move to the audience questions, the last one from my side, is should increasingly today health is becoming a very important part of organizational policies, organizational growth, because how healthy you are will impact your productivity.
Hmm.
And how are you seeing organizations play a proactive role in driving health outcomes and better health
Hmm.
outcomes for their employees? Uh,
Yeah, so I did mention about it, but frankly, I think well-being, whether it is physical, mental, financial, I'm not going to spiritual because that's something maybe we don't do enough. But
right.
this is something which is high on agenda for any organization. For
Hmm.
us, for example, we have a roadmap for our well-being initiative, which is part of the people strategy. So it
Right.
is right there, right on top in terms of what we do for well-being, whether it is medical benefits, whether it is counseling services, whether it is mental health aiders. But not only these, also things like whether, for example, we are doing for women who are going on maternity, parental coaching for parents to be, the kind of leaves that companies have. A lot of companies are relooking at the family leaves, adoption leave, same, wedding leave, bereavement leave. Those kind of leaves are quite, these are very simple things, but they are quite important for the well-being of employees. You don't want employees to go on leave and feel guilty about it. And I
Hmm.
remember when I was in India, when I was working in India, I used to feel guilty taking 2 weeks leave. 1 week was enough. Okay. And what I like about our organization is that leave is seen as time to rejuvenate. It is not seen as that, okay, why are you going on leave? You should be working. you know.
True.
So if it is my paid leave, I should feel fully entitled to it because it will help me in my mental well-being. And I guess
Right.
apart from this, most of the organization, and we have a lot of staff clubs. So we have running club, the tennis club, the recreation club, which really helps employees to do things apart from they're doing at work. For example, I'm learning Cantonese class, which is part of a cultural diversity network, or I was in the Dragon Boat team, and it really helps me to be maybe more bonded to the company, but also feel a little bit more stress free when I'm doing these activities, which are sponsored by the bank. So I feel more closer to the bank.
Absolutely. So we'll move to a few audience questions. There are quite a few, so we will pick a few for this conversation. Given we have about 10 minutes more with you, so
Hmm.
let me first pick a question from Jagdish Bari Mishra, and he's asked: Pandemic has changed work culture across the globe. Twitter has recently allowed employees who don't need to be in office to maintain work from home permanently. Do you see similar steps being taken by companies as well? I know you mentioned that Societe Generale already offers 2 days work from home, but how
Yeah.
do you see this trend play out at a broader level?
I think so. This hybrid is now a norm. Most of the
Hmm.
organizations that I look at, including some of the companies in India, which are international. Sorry, I do not have much information about the local companies in India, but they're all looking at that 2 days, working from home and 3 days working from office, and I think it's also becoming more agile, where people are actually companies are saying that if need be people can work from home. They
Right,
don't need to necessarily come to office if the work doesn't require it. Again,
right.
like, for certain jobs, you do need to come because there are some systems and all which you cannot use because you are licensed. So there are some constraints here and there, but I do think that this is going to stay. It's something which is not going to go away. And maybe companies who are not doing it, they will be forced to do it because it will become a norm, you know.
There is another question I think this is a more technical question, that there's a gentleman who has asked that he was given a show cause notice because of something which his team member did, and he was held accountable, which was a valuable lesson for him. Having said that, he wants to understand how does it impact future organizations when they look at his profile. This is by Bharat.
Okay. So for me, as when we are managers, we do have responsibility for the team. Yeah. For me, if the manager has done, if Bharat has done everything, which was right, but still it led to something, which was a failure of a system of etc. If he's honest about it, I do think that the hiring managers in the new company will take it, more positively. Yeah. The key here, I would think, will be more in terms of honesty, because if he's honest with his new employer, I think they will take it as a positive. They will take it as a strength that he's actually open about it and not trying to hide it under the carpet. And I did speak about it.
Yeah.
Personally, I prefer people who are honest, even if has been some mistake or some. We all make mistakes. So, I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this world who has never made a mistake. So,
So,
being honest is the only way to go. That will be my advice, Bharat, to you.
Thank you. That was very useful. The next question comes from Abhishek Prasad, who asks that while your insights are very sharp and your thoughts were very helpful to him, how do you think employers and how open do you think employers become when employees want to change their careers midway?
This is this is something which we have been discussing in SocGen quite a lot. We are actually very open about it. So we have an internal mobility policy where if people feel that after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, they want to change their career. But again, it's true that it also depends on the culture of your organization. And I do know many managers who do not like it if somebody in their team wants to change their career. For us, we have done a lot of functional mobilities. So people have changed their career midway, when they were 10 years, 15 years, 20 years also. And we actually look at it very positively. Of course, the question that we have to look at is whether is there a position which is, where the skills are transferable? Because if you
Right.
want to completely change your career, then you may also need to compromise a little bit in terms of, taking a position which may not be at the same level and then try, because you're not an expert in that. But
Right.
we have had people who have changed career. I'm personally quite okay with it, and in my team also we have people who have come from different professions, not from HR. I'm open-minded about it, and looking at it. Some of our other departments are also, but you have to also see some departments where you really need technical people. They may want to have people with similar kind of skills.
Right.
Yes, I think companies are getting better. We definitely are quite open about it. I cannot talk for others, but we are.
Absolutely. So there are two more questions which I'll blend and ask you instead of asking them individually, and this will be the final question here from this audience. One is given, like you said, in some markets there is a talent shortage. So how do you deal with such situations, which Siddhant wants to know? And there is a follow-up question from Bharat, which I think would be integrated in this context, that employee retention programs very often tend to be monetary. But if
Mhm.
happiness is the root cause for moving on, then how do you design meaningful employee retention programs?
Yeah, this is the this is the question every time that if not money, then what else? I can see money is important, and I do not discount the importance of money. I think we should pay people at market level, if possible. If the organization, if it is possible, we should do that, because people should feel valued. So that is one point which is there. I do feel that, for example, internal mobility, it does help people to stay in one company, because you
Right.
may get bored. People have different reasons for moving. It's career growth, it is boredom, it is different exposure that you want. So if we can give it within the organization by either providing functional mobility or geographical mobility, then you will retain people. And okay, I have been in the organization for 16 years, and I do know
Mm,
that HR people move around a lot. But I have I have been here because I was given a chance. After 4 years in India, I moved to Hong Kong. 6.5 years, I moved to Singapore, came back. For me, I was given that growth, which made me stay in the company. And of course, money is important. But if I did not have this career growth, I may not have stayed for that long. And we have
mm,
many people, many things like that. So I think internal mobility, geographical, functional, can really help in a great way. Managers that are really good for you and are looking at your growth, they are quite important. But the most important I've seen is career growth. If career growth is good, if the employees are friendly, we have many people who leave us, and so one of the things they say is that in Soggen they felt it was like family, and it's
mm.
not one, it's like many people. So sometimes that kind of environment, people may not want to leave unless the temptation is very high, because
Right.
you are working for so many hours, you do want to have a conducive environment. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
but there are
Absolutely.
many
Yeah.
other things, but I think it depends on the organization. Yeah.
Okay. A last question from my side, and then before we close this session, Mukta, one is there is a lot being made about Indian managers who are succeeding on the global stage, right? Whether at different levels, of course,
Mhm.
regional, global. What are some of the qualities which you think Indian managers bring to the table which helps them succeed? Equally, what do you think are some of the roadblocks that they should be conscious of when they are
Mhm.
transitioning their career from to a global profile?
I think the qualities that are there is definitely the domain knowledge, in terms of the studies, what they have done, and the foundation. I think it's pretty good. So you will see in banking there are quite a few Indian profiles which are there. When I was in Singapore, a number of HR people were Indians, So there's a big community which is there. So domain knowledge is important. I think a number of Indian people are quite creative, and maybe it's because we are very competitive in India with the population which is quite big. So the competitiveness is definitely there. I do find the fire in the belly makes people do things which are maybe a cut above the rest, and learning. When I do programs on my own, so I would invest myself. I see many other Indians doing the same, which I have not seen in many other nationalities. And I do feel that this hunger for learning, doing things better, it does help Indians to go on a global platform, much easily and succeed. So yes, those are the positive things which are there. And of course, the command of English language is quite important because it is quite universal. And this does help when you have to find a position in a global organization. So yes, these are the positive things. In terms of improvement, again, those are very personal. Some people may have, but other people may have different ones. um, I don't know, Sunil. I don't think I will be able to
Okay.
answer that one. It's very personal, huh? Yeah.
No, no problem at all. So thank you so much, Mukta. This was truly an eye-opening conversation, and your inputs, I'm sure, are invaluable to our students and the larger community in general. That as they chart their future, I really like some of the principles that you laid out in the beginning of your conversations: adaptability, creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and a passion for excellence as values to hold you in good stead as you drive your career. And absolutely interesting to see the kind of work which you're doing in Societe Generale and the perspective that you brought to the table from a global role. Thank you so much for this time and for this really enriching session. I also want to take this time to thank the Career Development Cell team at Shiv Nadar University for organizing this wonderful event. And we do look forward to seeing you at all the other events which are lined up over the rest of the week. Thank you all for participating and attending this so enthusiastically. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, Sunil, and thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.